Hey guys, Jackie here, and I am here to let you guys know to basically thank you for your patience because BC's been going through it. And you will see why at the end of this review. And for those who don't already know, there has been a major change in location because unfortunately life kind of sucks. But it's perfectly okay. He's okay. The baby's okay, and above all, his family is okay. Things will be picking up again very, very soon, and hopefully, this review and everything and all the work that he put into it makes up for all the waiting. Enjoy!
What is up, everybody? BC coming back at you guys. We had another Transformers video review, and today we are going to be taking a look at my most exciting pieces yet, Haslab Omega Prime. Now, there's a lot of history between me and these, so I'm going to do my best to get through it as quick as possible, but at the same time, if I start going into nitty-gritty details, I'm just going to have to ask you guys to just bear with me because this is very exciting for me. That being stated, let's go ahead and at least go through what comes in the box. So obviously you get Magnus Prime, you get Cerebros, which is inside of the ladder, and then you get Blue Bolt with her missiles. Yes, that is a her. You get the Space Bridge, and you get arguably one of the best accessories I've ever seen on a figure in a long time. The Matrix Blade. Yeah, there's a lot to get through with this. Now, I get that the stand is a part of the package, but I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I'm probably not going to put them on the stands for the sake of the video entirely because, let's face it, as neat as those stands are, the real stars of the show are these right here. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and start readjusting the camera first of all to make sure I got everything shot. There we go. And yeah, I guess for right now I'm gonna go ahead and start with Blue Bolts. So let's get started. So beginning with Blue Bolts here, Blue Bolts is a weaponizer sort of figure, which means this splits apart into a bunch of weaponry and a bunch of armor parts. But there's a bit of a nostalgia bias with me, but we'll get to that once I'm done talking about this. So, as one can clearly see, this is her weapon mode, and it's a weapon mode, so big whoop. So, the thing with weaponizers, since I actually have yet to talk about these on my channel, all of these bits come off. The missiles come off, and these bits come off, and even the leg parts, come off. That all has to do, like, a lot of this mainly has to do with the feature for Ultra Magnus, but I'm less worried about that than anything. And normally I would do the montage transformation, but given she's a weaponizer, I really don't see the point, so I'm just gonna go ahead and blitz right through this. So give me just a second. Just start transforming her and flipping things around. Pop this open, flip this up, close these, stand her up. Whoop. Yeah, can you tell I haven't done a shotgun transformation in a hot little minute? I'm so used to the montages that I'm just not getting this. Anyways, so once I finally attach her missiles to her back, we can finally talk about the robot mode a little bit. Kind of kick it old school a little bit. Really show how things have changed with me, I guess. So yeah, there we go. There's her robot mode. And it's cool. I don't think it's terrible. I like her head, and like the overall aesthetic of the robot I think is really cool. Now, articulation wise, you know, mainly just due to the peg port, she's got all that shoulder movement, the bicep swivel, a really deep elbow bend. Technically speaking, she's got a wrist swivel, but her hands are literally guns. So, you know, do with that what you will. Shockingly, she's got a waist, or not just a waist joint, but if it'll actually work, she's kind of got a bit of a, never mind. I thought it was a ab crunch. I mean, I guess you could cheat it and turn her head around and her torso around, but I'm not going to do that because that's stupid. Anyways, waist swivel, hips go forward and back, in and out. Thigh swivel, thanks to the fact that this comes off. Really deep elbow bend and an ankle tilt that barely gets you anything. So yeah, neat little figure, nice little bonus. But again, just being completely honest when I say she's really not the star of the show. So if I'm rushing through her, or you feel like I should be spending a little bit more time with this, honestly, the nostalgia bias in me, I'm never going to be looking at this robot mode ever again after this. So I'm going to go ahead and leave her, or like once we go to talk about Prime, I will be turning her back into her weapon mode so that we can, you know, move things along. So yeah, with that said, we will be right back. Okay. Now let's get into the good stuff. Now, as one can clearly see, this is the Optimus Prime half of it, or if you come from Japan, this is your Fire Convoy. As you can see, they basically almost one-to-one faithfully represented him, and he looks absolutely spectacular. Now, I'm going to specify something right out the gate before I really start digging into the toy. Mine did not have any QC I'm very lucky in that regard, but if you're letting a QC issue damage your outlook on the toy, I don't know what to tell you. If you're able to get the replacement parts, then the way I see it, you need to genuinely temper your opinion on it until you can fix and repair the problems and then actually get the product you paid for. Because as far as I know, you don't got to pay for the new parts. Like, again, I don't know this for certain, but as far as I know, you're not going to have to pay for those parts. So if you're going to allow a massive mess up like this, which again, I do see the point. I do get why people are upset. I'm not letting it taint my love for this toy. So if you are going to sit here and say I'm glazing a crap product, yeah, get in line, because I don't care. My copy's perfectly fine, therefore I can judge it the way it's meant to be judged. As far as I'm concerned, the entire package is simply just amazing. That said, let's go ahead and get into it. So here is the fire truck. And it's a very good looking fire truck, but of course, one thing you're never going to be able to escape, that's clear as day, the super mode head. You're not getting around that. And I do kind of understand why people would be upset with this, but to be honest, if you were fine with it on the original toy, I don't see why you wouldn't be fine with it here. So yeah. Now, that said, I grew up with the original toy. I no longer have the original toy. Yes, I'm still sad about it. So this is the entirety of the truck mode, and it looks absolutely spectacular. And there are some things with the way this works that makes me smile. Because on the original toy, you couldn't really pick up the truck mode all that well, because this entire back half would literally just fall off the thing. Like, you know, obviously if you're holding it with both hands, it'd be fine, but if you held it like this, it would have fell apart. There are so many new locking features on this entire piece that makes me smile. And there are so many things with this, with just the Prime alone, that makes me feel my money was well spent. And I don't know how else to say it. Now, as we go through this, I'm going to do my best to cover every single feature, but let's be real, I'm just itching to get this back into Omega Prime mode. So let's go ahead and get into some more little features. So right out the gate, obviously, as one can see, here is the little Cerebros. He sits in this little seat just fine. Up in here, you can flip this down, and while there's no pegs for it, you can literally just stand him in there and make it look as if he's, you know, doing stuff in there. And again, real quick flip. There he is as a head. I do have a theory about this, but I'm gonna wait until I'm done with the actual review itself to go into what I think. And if I'm right, I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So with that stated, let's go ahead and go into some other features. Now, obviously, these things do flip forward. On the original toy, there would have been a button right here. You would have pressed it and they'd have spring-loaded flipped out. Y'all know how I feel about spring-loaded gimmicks, and I very much stand by it with this. There would be a button right back here. You would tap it and all these would flip forward. Here, they're all literally just friction-based. The missiles do indeed come out, so you can put blast effects on this and blast effects in there to make it seem as if the missiles actually fired out of this thing. So real cool, real cool, real cool. The ladder is on a ratchet joint. I'm only going to put it to there. It can swing all the way around, and you'll see it for when I turn it into super mode. But one thing I wanted to make sure we see is the fact that this feature returned as well, the extending of the ladder. I'm not sure why people thought this would be gutted, but there you go. It does fully extend, and it's pretty erect. And yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and compress it back in. Nice silver paint on that too. And there you have it. That's generally the truck mode. Now, here is the part that's going to be fun specifically for me. I'm going to start pulling this apart as I'm going to his smaller robot. But we're going to start showing some things as we go through it to make sure that people can see precisely what I'm doing. So give me just one quick second and we will start turning this into the robot. Okay, so now is the point where I'm going to go ahead and kind of cut the music real quick. This is the point that a lot of people were having issues with, and as one can clearly see, I have no cracks. Everything is perfectly fine. Everything functions perfectly fine. So, as per usual with Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So, live right here. See? Perfectly fine. Back to the music. And there he is in robot mode. And the little kid in me is currently screaming, in case you couldn't tell. I'm looking at this and I'm not seeing a toy that was made for adult me. I am looking at this and I am seeing what my original toy looked like when I was a kid. I am finally starting to understand where people are coming from in that regard. I still don't think that this is like, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread, but you know, it kind of is, but you know, that's besides the point. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I'm still flabbergasted at the fact that this thing even exists and is in my home. So, obviously, he has the pistol. It can indeed fit in his hand. So, let's go ahead and start doing some quick little comparisons. So, once again, kind of working a little bit of JJ's magic here real quick. Here is the Haslab, and showing up as a picture on the left here. First things first, we're gonna get the animation model out of here real quick, okay? We'll get to that. Put the original toy here first. There we go. All right, so as you can see, there's the original toy, and there's the Haslab. As one can clearly see, the Haslab absolutely slaps in comparison. It's proportionally much more defined. It's much more like it feels like more. The Haslab feels more refined than the original. I'm not saying the original is bad. In fact, I was telling Chris Jam when I was talking to him about mine that, you know, I really feel he shouldn't sell his originals because there's still a charm to them, and I stand by that. But if I'm going to choose between the originals and the Haslab, I'm gonna pick the Haslab because the Haslab naturally just looks better to me. So with all that stated, now JJ, now we can move the original toy and we can put the animation model there. And as you can see, in comparison to the animation model, it's a pretty dead on. It's pretty dead on to what the animation model looked like. Obviously with some minor adjustments, but you know, it is what it is. So anyways, with that said, let's go into the actual figure comparisons. There he is with my previous review, 86 Optimus, which, you know, obviously there's a massive size difference between the two of them, and depending on what continuity you're viewing this from, it's either they are both either the same character or one is a different character from the other. It all depends on what side of the pond you come from. So yeah, there we go, compared to 86 Prime. There he is with Origins Jazz. No, he totally did not steal that blade. There he is with Origins Bumblebee. You know, pretty cool, all things considered. Here he is with Reactive. Right. Sorry, JJ. I'll get this out of your presence. And lastly, to possibly debut a new series that I would definitely like to call figures that nobody else likes that BC loves, Devastation Studio Series Prime. So yeah, there's all the size comparisons. All right, let's kind of start talking gimmicks and features, I guess. So first things first, as you can clearly tell, he can hold a little pistol. There's no issue with that. But unlike the original toy, this is something I appreciate immensely. Whoa, easy there. The arm panels slide up to free up his wrists. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate that alone, because it allows so much more freedom of movement on the figure. Now again, I'm not saying that the original is bad because of this in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I still stand by the original was a product of its time. It simply was doing so much more than everything else was at the time. But if I'm being 100% real with you guys right now, I love this entirely because of what it does for the wrist. It's really awesome. Now, but of course, you know, I'm not going to keep it like that. I'm going to go ahead and slide all that down, because now we're going into what is the next point of contention, which is some of his armor parts, which will require me to first keep him in front of us, and then we're going to drag in these. We're going to flip his toe up, flip his wheel in, but then kind of flip the toe back down, and then this will just plug in up here. Now, I don't remember fully if this mode actually uses the knuckle gloves too, but for the sake of not knowing, if I am indeed wrong, then at this point I'm going to allow JJ to put a picture like right here, or a text saying if I'm right, or a picture proving me wrong. So as far as I can tell, this is the gimmick with the foot parts with just him, and it's pretty cool. But there's another gimmick with the armor parts that we can talk about real quick, and that's going to require, well, getting the armor parts right in front of me. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I apologize if I tricked you into thinking we were going to super mode. We're going to base mode. So how we're going to do this is we're basically just going to start piecing things together. So these go back together exactly the way they did for the sake of truck mode. Flip this all the way up, open this, and then these pieces are all going to come down and kind of just lay there for the most part. And then you tab the gauntlets in here and here. You're going to take your shoulder pauldrons and you tab them on right about here. Just to make my life a little bit easier. There we go. And then you just kind of flip these up and kind of rotate his hands around and down like this to kind of so to get them out of the way. And of course, some things aren't 100% secure on this, I will admit, but you know, again, at this point, who's really gonna use this? Anyways, flip those guns forward, and there is the base mode. Yeah, I teased y'all long enough. Let's get to super mode. Or allow me to do this properly. JJ, make sure you have this queued up. Time for battle protocol. And there he is in battle mode. Mommy. Like, y'all, you gotta give me this. I absolutely love the fact that they took the battle mode, which was already a ridiculously awesome looking robot on its own. I'm glad that they took that same exact design and just added so much more oomph to it, you know? Like, this thing literally looks as if you tried him at your, if you dared to try him on your best day, he would fuck you up. Like, I'm not even kidding. This thing looks like it would beat your ass 3 ways from Sunday. It is a simply fantastic looking robot. So yeah, there we go. The entire thing, like, honestly, I almost don't even want to go into, like, articulation and gimmicks and such, because this already looks so spectacular that I genuinely feel I don't need to go into anything else. This looks that good. But of course, I'm recording a review, so I need to make sure that I am showing you guys everything you're getting in the box. So let's go ahead and start trying to get into it. So first things first, obviously there's the giant ladder section in the back. We're going to go ahead, we're going to disconnect it from here, rotate it here, and this will swing around over his shoulder. And it holds on its own. You can open up the missiles and everything, you can flip those forward. They even kind of have the divot in here to kind of give off the idea that it's a cannon. But just, yeah, the fact that that's been addressed is pretty awesome. Now, here's one thing about the super mode, or battle mode in this case, that I'm going to mention that only on a very personal level bugs me a little bit here. Well, okay, there's two, but one is less egregious than the other. The one that is less egregious to me, this is more supposed to be in line of being draped over the left side, and for the final figure here, it's being left straight down the middle on the back. Again, it's no big deal, genuinely no big deal. I just kind of wish that, you know, they would have put that little bit of extra effort in, maybe just that little bit more tooling in to make sure it could do that, where it would be sitting right here. But again, at the same time, really not that big a deal. I'm not going to sit here and get uber butthurt over it. Now, the one that I will admit, this is just the nostalgia bias in me coming out to play. I'm just going to say that flat out. So if anybody starts getting all uppity in the comments, realistically, this isn't going to ruin the experience. That said, on the original toy, this little pea shooter could plug in to a little port that would be right here on his shoulder. That port doesn't exist here. And it kind of bugs me, because that was one of my favorite things to do on the original toy, was to armor him up completely. And then when I finally got the chest piece plugged in, just plug that little gun in right there, good to go. And the fact that that's not there, like the disappointing aspect of it is mainly just me not being able to relive a specific part of my childhood joy. Is it ultimately going to matter at the end of the day? No, absolutely not. So with that said, let's go into other things that the figure can do in its battle mode. We can, if you come in here, there is a little energon matrix right here. This actually does pop out and then fit inside of the smaller robot's torso, which is pretty neat. And that's basically it. There really isn't any other major features in this mode, other than, well, at this point, there's no getting around it. It's time to do some comparisons. Now, once again, here is not the animation model. I need the original toy first. There we go, thank you. So here is the original toy, and here is the Haslab. And as you can see, big difference in how the Haslab functions in comparison to how the original functions. Now, let's bring out the animation model. And the animation model, once again, you're kind of starting to see what I mean with that whole ladder over his left shoulder thing. It's, like, again, it's really not a deal breaker, but it is something that, if we're going for the sake of animation accuracy, he really can't hit that note. So, yeah, with all that said, this figure, on his own, is already pulling so much friggin' weight. So, at this point, now I'll start going into actual physical figure comparisons. There's 86 Prime, once again. Armada Prime in Super Mode. Yeah, that should generally give you an idea of just how big the battle mode is. And last but certainly not least, Devastation Prime, to just show how much more mass is on the battle mode in comparison to a Deluxe. Articulation-wise, we'll start at the head, and I will kind of go through and mention smaller robot articulation as well. So for the head for the battle mode is on like multiple different joints. So there's a base neck joint that kind of moves up and down right there. There's a secondary neck joint that moves up there. I feel that this extends his head up a little too high, so I tend to try not to use it. But that's besides the point. Anyways, there's that little silver joint in there that twiddles back and forth. And then the neck itself is on a very expressive ball joint. So pretty cool as far as I'm concerned, but ultimately I'm going to end up keeping his neck like that because that looks more anatomically correct to me. Now, the actual smaller robot head, that one is mainly on a ball joint, but it's a very limited ball joint, and the neck is on a slider joint as well. The shoulders, generally speaking, remain the same. He's got a full rotation at the shoulder. He's got the ratchet shoulder joint that allows it to go out. But of course, you know, you also have about that much range of movement in the shoulder just as a whole. So I'd say that's pretty good. elbow swivel, which is pretty good. I'd say that's about a 90-degree elbow, which is fine. No big deal, honestly. And then both the smaller hands and the bigger hands rotate. The thumb and fingers move on the bigger hands. So now let's get to the torso. So the torso, this is actually very interesting in how all this works now. So clearly enough, as we can see, there's now a cradle in here. This cradle is going to matter for the rest of this video. And I'll show you why here in a moment. But before we go into it, here's the level of movement you could get out of it, even utilizing the cradle. He has a waist joint. Now, of course, this does flip up, so if you need it out of the way for the sake of a picture or a pose, you can indeed flip it up out of the way. So he does have a rotating waist. You could probably get a full 360 out of it. I don't know why you would, but hey, your toy, do what you want. Now, he does have an ab crunch. And there is a bit of a molding in it where it allows for that ab crunch. But of course, it tabs in on the actual connection point. So when you're, without doing that, so when you're moving this forward, it does kind of cause that to come undone. So you are kind of losing structural stability if you use the ab crunch. Not a big deal to me, because either way, this thing more than holds its own weight. So I can get over it. So with that said, let's go ahead and bring the camera down just a little bit so that we can get a look at the articulation in the lower body. So for his lower body, he has hips that go in, that go out and in, forward, and back on very heavy ratchet joints. There's a very tight thigh swivel right at the top, but there's also a looser knee swivel. So either way, you do get plenty of rotation in the legs. The knee is a very clicky 90-degree bend. So you do get plenty of leg movement down here. But the thing that shocked me on this, you can kind of already see it fully displayed here. Battle Mode has an ankle joint. And, you know, like the actual ankle joint on the smaller figure, you can kind of see it right there. That one's on a ball joint. But yeah, nevertheless, like the fact that Battle Mode has an ankle joint, if memory serves me right, that was not present on the original figure. So, massive kudos. So there we go. There is the Optimus Prime half. So here's what we're going to do here. I'm not busting out the turntable yet, but I will at least honor those who really only care about the Prime aspect of this. And I'm going to give you guys, generally, grade-wise, how I feel about him. This, I'm going to just straight up say, is a Platinum Seal figure on his own. And that basically means he's an 8 out of 10. He's a very, very good figure. But the main reason I'm bogging him down is because I'm also keeping in mind my figure was basically perfect right out of the box. And unfortunately, you're not guaranteed that. So I am kind of keeping that in mind for the sake of my own grade. So that being stated, obviously, again, I'm not busting out the turntable. We're going to save that for the very end. So there is Optimus on his own. Let us finally move on to Ultra Magnus. And here we are at the Ultra Magnus portion of this, which basically means we're at the home stretch. We're pretty much at the halfway point, and we will be able to hopefully wrap this up relatively soon so that we can get back to our days. Shall we? Let's. So here is Ultra Magnus in his truck mode, and as one can see, that is one very, 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 very shiny front section. And there's some things with that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But nevertheless, here is the truck mode on its own. Obviously, as one can see, rolls really well. Now, the gimmick it does carry over from its original figure, is you can indeed pop the back open and fit a car in here and then 2 more up here. Now, naturally, since this is a review, you're probably thinking, oh, well, BC, you're going to show that off, right? No. I'm not going to, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I am going to be... This is the only bit of purism that I am going to allow myself to do. I'm not going to show this feature off at all until Hasbro finally stops being cowards and gives me my other 2 Autobot brothers. Come on, Hasbro. Give me Prowl and X-Bron. Give me Prowl and X-Bron. That's all I'm asking. At that point, if you give me Prowl and X-Bron, I will not ask you for anybody else afterwards for as long as humanly possible, at least until I start realizing we still don't have a Megatron. But that's besides the point. So with that said, again, there's Ultra Magnus pretty much on his own, and other than the ramp system and everything, he's basically just kind of a bog standard figure. So that being stated, there is no like major super mode or anything like that. He just has a transformation, and we're gonna go ahead and get right into that. So with all that said, you already saw Blue Bolt attached to the vehicle mode. I'm gonna show you, generally speaking, how she attaches to the robot mode in a couple different ways. I'm not doing the giant gun embankment thing. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna show the ones that I feel were the biggest, like, oh hey, that's pretty neat types of area. And other than that, we're going straight into the robot, and then we're gonna finally bring Prime in, do all the comparisons, then go into the combine mode and get out of here. So with that said, let's get into it. And there's the robot mode. And as you can see, it is a very weird looking design. I'm not even going to hold you on that. The entire upper torso looks off. The waist looks teensy. The legs are legs. And the arms are a bit bulbous. Like he literally looks like he's got Popeye forearms. And, you know, the wings on the back, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, once again, there's a charm to this design that just has me continuously coming back to it. And it's honestly just a really awesome looking figure once you have it in hand. Now, once again, just to kind of real quick get it out of the way, let's move this over to the side. And this time, we're going to go ahead and once again, we're going to... JJ, what? Oh, it is the original toy. Hey, thank you. So anyways, hey! Put the original toy back up. Thank you. So anyways, there he is next to the original toy. And as you can see, there, in comparison to the original toy, massive improvement here. Absolutely massive improvement. So now getting the original toy out of the way and showing the animation model. And yeah, this definitely is a lot closer to the animation model, but even then, he's technically not perfect. I know that there are some people that chase cartoon accuracy out there. That's why I bring it up. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think y'all will be fine. This is a perfectly fine figure. So with that said, let's get into the actual physical toy comparisons. The Deluxe Devastation Prime, because again, why not? 86 Prime, because he's here. Armada Prime, to give you guys a better idea of just how big he actually is. They both basically look each other dead in the eye. So yeah, basically a commander class figure. And here he is with the 86 Commander Class Ultra Magnus. 1 Magnus, 2 Magnus. That's literally the only reason why I wanted to do it. But you can also kind of see a lot of the similarities between the two of them, based entirely on what they turn into and the two different ways they do it. It's pretty cool to see how it all actually plays out. So yeah, that's basically it for robot mode comparison. So let's go into the articulation real quick. Okay, so I slightly lied. There's Prime in battle mode to show that, unlike the original toys, Prime is actually bigger than him in battle mode now. Granted, not by much, but he is bigger now. So say that for what you will. Now the head is on a very, very, very stiff ball joint. Barely gets any movement out of it. You can get the movement out of it, but it is stupid stiff, so good luck. Shoulders, rotate. They bump into the wings, but they do get the full 360 if you just move the arm out of the way. Separate joint that allows the shoulder to go in and out. Whoops. Bicep swivel. Beyond, so if it's out to here, it's beyond 90, but again, due to the fact that it's very Popeye in nature, if you try it straight forward, he only really gets just below 90. So, a little unfortunate, but if you really want to get it browned at, just do that. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. Shh. It's okay. So, yeah, getting this. Now, there's no waist joint entirely because of how all this transforms. I'm perfectly okay with that. Hips on soft ratchets, going forward and back, in and out. Thigh swivel. Super heavy knee, or not super heavy, super clicky knee joint on a soft ratchet. And the thing that makes me very happy is this down here. I forgot to slide one of them up. He has an ankle tilt. That is so cool. So yeah, the fact that this now has an ankle tilt is pretty cool. So yeah, there we go. There he is. Just kind of on his own. There's the articulation, but we're also going to show one more thing, and that has to do with blue bolts. So moving Magnus out of the way real quick, the specific points you're going to yank off of blue bolts here are her missiles, her arms, and her legs. I'm just gonna set all that off to the side. Now to do some of the prep work, we're gonna open this up and then open up from the back, flip this entire piece around, close it up, flip this up. And then obviously get this all the way up as high as humanly possible. There's that piece. Flip it over like this. You're then gonna set that right there. You're gonna bring her legs in. And all you're gonna do, you're just gonna bring this leg, her thigh down like this. And like this is gonna take a minute, so give me just a bit. These and this, just you'll see what you got to do here in a second. So just kind of making sure everything is in place the way it needs to be. There we go. Now, when we bring Ultra Magnus back in, that's when we can start doing stuff with all of her stuff. So the first thing we're going to address is the torso. And obviously, as you can see, there's another Energon Matrix here for Ultra Magnus, or God Magnus if you're on the other side of the pond. So you're going to lift the head up, and there's a peg right here, which is going to allow this to slot into that. So get it lined up exactly right. And once you got it lined up, it should peg right in. Of course, I've only really done this like once, so bear with me. There we go. It's in. This closes up. And I always struggle at this point. There we go. And as you can see, she fits right in there. And then the rest of it is literally just put it all on the back of his legs. That's literally all there is to it. So give me 1 second and I will try my best to show you how it all works. So these bits, I'm going to say that they come in Okay, tab in right about there, and then tab in back there. Tabs in there, and then tabs in there. The guns, if my memory is correct, which let's face it, probably isn't. Like, I think this goes like right here. Yeah, it goes right there. And then this goes right here. And then, as one can clearly tell, the missiles being a like literal last possible second add-on, they literally just slot in right here. And there we go. There is what I basically am calling Ultra Magnus Storage Garage mode. It's fine. It allows blue bolts to properly store away if you're only really using Magnus and Prime in their separate robot modes. It allows blue bolts to kind of just disappear without actually disappearing, if that makes any sense. Because, I mean, if you were to look at him straight on, you legit can't see her. So, ultimately, at the end of the day, not that big a deal. So, yeah, with all that stated, I think that is about it. I don't think that there's anything else I really need to do with this other than mutilate Ultra Magnus to turn him into armor for Optimus. So this is where things are going to get a little weird. So I am going to go ahead and do what is basically my final verdict for Ultra Magnus as a figure. So Ultra Magnus as a figure, including all of his features, all of his accessories, and everything, I do think him and Prime are about even. I would give him just normal platinum, but at the same time, given Prime is a much more impressive looking figure in comparison to Magnus, where Magnus looks a little on the doofy side, I'm going to say, for safety on my own personal grading system, I will give him at least low platinum, which is a 7 out of 10. So with that said, there is the rating for him, and we are going to now move into what is the point that I have basically this entire recording session have been waiting to do this entire time. Let's do it. What's an absolutely pleasant experience all the way through. So here he is in his very, very impressive glory. Let me make sure I readjust this so you guys can plain as day see just how hard this design slaps. So obviously at this point, if you really want to like fully complete the look, you take blue bolts and you plug her on up top. There we go. So now you basically have the entire Omega Prime system in place, and it's nothing short of just magnificent. Now, of course, I am also going to be doing a little bit more of an articulation, like more of an articulation rundown as opposed to an actual articulation segment, because the bulk of the articulation is on Prime as it is, but there are certain things that the parts do have that I can go over very quickly. So obviously, for one, you just saw there's a ball joint in the neck of Omega Prime himself. And, you know, like, the only reason why I'm having trouble moving it is because the pipes keep getting stuck on blue bolts. There should be another slider in the neck, but unfortunately, it doesn't really go that far. And honestly, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. So yeah, it's fine. It's no big deal. Although the actual neck itself is also on another panel that you can lift up if you need him to really like look down. So that's neat. I like that. That's cool. And then obviously, you know, the hands have 2 joints in the knuckles here, and then the thumb joint, which is pretty cool. So closing these back up. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have much in the realm of complaints, so to speak, with this. Other than, well, you know, like, there are some things with this that I kinda take issue with, but that's neither here nor there. So at this point, oh, and one of the things that I want to point out real quick, down here on the feet, to kind of rotate him around just real quick so we could get a quick look-see at it. You see these down here? You see these little bits down here? Yeah, that's the feet of Ultra Magnus. They engineered this where not only does the Ultra Magnus have the ankle joint, but when it's in combined mode, the ankle joint carries over into Omega Prime, which is absolutely awesome to say the least. So with all of that stated, let's go ahead and get him all sorts of set up so we can really start getting into every other bell and whistle with this. And we're going to start with some size comparisons. So we're gonna move him over here real quick. Or you know what? No. Here's what we're gonna do. Since apparently JJ really liked messing with me this entire time. Original toy, animation model. And as one can clearly see, yeah, you can kind of tell it's going for the animation model, and it nails it. Now, of course, I'm not seeing this quite yet, so I am very much, but I've seen this compared to the animation model, and I'm telling y'all, it matches the animation model almost word for word. It's a very impressive looking piece. So now that we can get those out of the way, now let's get into the physical figure comparisons. And I'm mainly just trying to make sure that I have him in a really good spot before we move on. So yeah. Let's do some size comparisons. 86 Prime, which, you know, again, like, look at the absolute mass and size of this. Like, this is a Commander class toy. This is a holy shit class toy. There's Devastation Prime, which honestly I feel like this would definitely be in scale with him entirely, because Devastation Prime, like, size-wise, was tiny in comparison to combiners. There he is with 86 Ultra Magnus, which, you know, it's pretty cool to see Ultra Magnus next to this. And so yeah, that's definitely pretty cool. And what is going to be my last comparison for the day, the Armada Prime. And once again, like, at this point, like, for a hot little minute, this was like the top dog as far as Commander class was concerned. Like, for sure, bar none, he was the top dog. He held that title for a hot little minute, but yeah, it's safe to say now that this is here, like, I still like this. I still really, really like this. But this takes it, bar none. So yeah, there we go. there is the comparisons. Now, before we bust out the turntable and get into the final thoughts, it's time we talked the other accessories. So, at this point, give me one moment. So now we are moving on to what is arguably the most boring part of the video, because at this point, literally all we're talking about are the stands. So, this adapter piece has to go in to be able to put Ultra Magnus on the stand, and Prime, you literally only need this bit. It's either that bit or that. I'm pretty sure it's this bit that's needed for you to use Prime, which, you know, naturally when both are separated out, you can definitely get away with, you know, displaying them both on this. And I think it would look absolutely awesome, but, you know, I'm not displaying them separate, I'm displaying them combined. So at that point, the stands are absolutely useless for me. And for whatever reason, I'm pretty sure it's a molding reason, you get two of these things. So maybe it's a case of if you lose one, you have a spare. Honestly, either way, it don't matter to me. Like, honestly, I think, could I get away with doing this? Yeah, you could literally just plug that in right there. So I'm not too worried about it. I don't think there's a spot you can store Cerebros on this, so I'm gonna F it. If it works, it works. But of course, we're not gonna keep droning on with this, because let's get to the real accessory. So bringing Omega Prime back in right quick and adjusting myself to make sure I can do this properly, we're going to go ahead and open up his hand. And as you can see, there's 3 little divots in his hand. And there's 3 divots in each segment of the handle of the sword. How he holds this is you basically line these up, push it in, and then wrap his fingers around it. Now, of course, since I'm recording, it's not going to cooperate with me. So let me go ahead and do this. Now, one of my biggest complaints with the sword, at least right out the gate, originally was he can barely freaking hold this thing. Yeah, this dude, I'm convinced, heard me when I said that, because when I kept trying to put him in poses originally, I was sitting there like, he genuinely cannot hold this thing. This is freaking ridiculous. Like, there's no chance in hell of him holding this. Well, yeah. Give me 1 second. I've got him two-handing this thing. And as one can clearly see, he's not being held up by anything. He's holding that sword no problem. That is some serious anime final battle vibes, and I am freaking here for it. Like, I fucking love it. Just flat out, I fucking love it. Like, I wish, how I wish the original toy came with this. Just, oh my god, this is such an awesome piece. And at this point, there's no other way of getting to the final thoughts other than straight from here. So I'm going to go ahead and set him up on the turntable, and then we will finally come back with what I think is the most obvious rating this is going to get. So with all of that said, everyone, give me 1 moment and we will get started on final thoughts. Okay, final thoughts. Let's begin with the negatives. Unfortunately, there is QC issues that we do need to address here. Unfortunately, some copies had Ultra Magnus yellowing right out of the box. That is a massive issue, and there is no excuse for it. Some copies had Optimus Prime with a cracked torso. It's unfortunate, very unfortunate, inexcusable, unacceptable. I do get it. I do understand. Of course, I also counter that with, once the replacement parts are available, you'll be able to repair your figure, and then you will have precisely what you paid for. It sucks that you have to wait a little longer, but there is at least an option. There's at least a fix. So with that being stated, Blue Bolt. She's a novelty at best, but ultimately, if keeping her as just one solid piece to give to Ultra Magnus and trying to actually remake it into his giant long rifle weaponry weapon pack thing, if like having it like that would have brought the cost of it down, you know, I definitely would have preferred they just do that instead. So yeah, like that's ultimately my biggest beef with Blue Bolts is like it just feels like she's a kind of a waste of time. Again, she's cool, don't get me wrong, she's really cool conceptually, but in execution, not gonna lie, she's kind of mid. If anything, she's just a glorified accessory, and that is all. And I say that to also say this. One of my major negatives right out of the box was the fact that he couldn't hold the sword, which, as one can clearly see, I got him holding it now. So, your mileage may vary there. You may be able to get him to hold it a lot easier than I did. You may not get him to hold it at all. It all depends. And this is mainly a personal negative for me. And again, this is mainly just a lot of nostalgia bias coming out of me. There are some specific things with Prime that kind of bugged me a little bit. The first thing being the lack of the port on the shoulder to put the little pea shooter up there. The lack of that annoyed me a bit. And then the ladder not being able to drape off the left side of his back. That annoyed me immensely. But ultimately I can get over those. So those are generally my negatives with with Prime. Ultra Magnus, most of his negatives really come into his design. And that's really not fair because he is literally just meant to be a glorified armor part. Now granted, in comparison to the original figure, this version is leaps and bounds better. But even then, I still have my discrepancies with it, where it feels like Ultra Magnus did not get the same tender love and care that Prime did. And even then, that's bearing in mind, there's a lot of improvements to Ultra Magnus. Like, a lot of them. Granted, I feel most of those improvements went into the combined mode, which, honestly, between the two, if you're going to sacrifice anything, sacrifice the robots to get us a better combined mode. I'm always going to say that, just flat out. I'm always going to say that. And yeah, at the end of the day, these are fantastic toys. And I'm really struggling to come up with real, like, major negatives. But one thing I'm going to slam on this right out of the gate, some of these clearances, especially when you're going to flip them between different modes, some of these tolerances and some of the clearances really were not very well thought out. It's giving very heavy. We focus so much on what we could do that we didn't think to ask if we should. That, like, if you know what I mean by that. I don't like the fact that I feel that way overall with this, because either way, you're about to hear the gush fest here in a second. But either way, there's a lot with this that I wish was better. But, guys, let's be honest with ourselves. This is a fantastic figure. The articulation is perfect. The joint tolerances across the board using a combination of heavy ratchets and very, very stiff friction joints absolutely carries the weight of this perfectly. The transformations going from each mode, once you have it figured out and you understand what you're doing, is nothing short of an engineering marvel. The chrome, oh my god, the chrome. The accessory count, Blue Bolts being able to attach to Ultra Magnus in multiple different ways and then combine onto Omega Prime in the most traditional way possible. Omega Prime's chrome blue eyes, the hands, the references not just to the animation model but also to the original toys. This thing took everything that everyone asked for this specific release and dialed it up to absolute perfection. This is a figure that is simply a once in a lifetime experience. We are not going to see something like this ever again. It's just not going to happen. And as much as I want to sit here and claim that at some point we will see something like this again, I don't think we ever will. Because there have been plenty of times where they could have attempted to top this, and they not only did they not try hard enough, but the few times they did try, it didn't hit nearly as hard as this. I want Haslab to continue to wow me the way this wowed me. I want Lio Kaiser to knock my f***ing socks off the way this did. I want every Rid 01 figure that comes out for the rest of my duration on this planet to hit as hard as this. Is that a bit of an exaggeration on my part? Admittedly, yes. But look at what I'm talking about right now and understand that this thing, if you hadn't already figured it out from the very beginning of the f***ing video, this thing is a BC seal. It is a perfect 10 out of 10. Absolutely brilliant experience. I love this thing from the moment I opened the box to the moment I finally got it on the turntable to do the final verdict. Every ounce of this figure was built for people who grew up with Rid 01. I grew up with Rid 01. My first Optimus Prime toy was Rid 01 Prime. Omega Prime was a figure that I genuinely, with every fiber of my being, wanted. And despite the fact that I didn't have nearly as much of the cast as I wanted, at the end of the day, I ended up being a very happy kid that one day when I came home, and of all people, my father brought both of them home for me to play with. So, Dad, if for whatever reason you're watching this, thank you for giving me that memory. Thank you for giving me that experience. Because that has gone into helping me appreciate this crowd-funded piece that much more. That said, I have some theories about Cerebros. My theory is that from here on out, when it comes to Rid 01 anything, if we do get another Rid 01 Haslab, the very next Haslab as a stretch goal, let's face it, I'm calling it now, it's going to be Cerebros' body. And then after that, the very final Haslab is more than likely going to be Rid 01 again, but a brand new Fort Max body, but it's specifically Rid 01 Fort Max. I admit I'm stretching a bit at the end, but you kind of see what I'm saying. I think they're deliberately teasing us with the idea that we're finally gonna get Rid 01 Fortress Maximus. That being said, and I'm talking about Cerebros, back to Omega Prime. At this point, you already know how I feel. It's a BC seal. For me, it's an absolutely perfect figure. But I also have to tell you guys this. He will not be on my list for figure of the year because it's just too easy. If I'm not going to allow myself to pick him specifically, this Haslab as my number one for the year, that no one else can either. So for those who were going to immediately say, oh yeah, absolutely, this is going to be BC's number one figure of the year, there's no way anything else is gonna take it. Well, back to the drawing board for you folks. With that said, after this ridiculously long experience, I am very pleased with this purchase, and the wait was literally killing me. It was literally killing me. I couldn't wait. The moment I found out it got to New Zealand as quickly as it did, I cried a little bit because just the excitement was killing me. But I have him now. He's great. He's fantastic. I just the way this figure makes me feel is something to behold. And that's really all I can say. It's a figure to behold. With all of that said, I'm sorry I talked y'all's ears off, and I'm fairly confident that JJ is glaring at me for how much time he's putting into this video that I asked him very nicely not to charge me a single dime for. This was something that I needed this video to get out so that people could see how I felt. So with all that said, I've taken up enough of your time. This is BC saying, stay nerdy and get your geek on. I'll talk to you guys next time.